everyone. Welcome to this new episode of our Student Spotlight series, where we are able to showcase some of the work our past students have done. I'm Charlotte, one of the outreach coordinators here with us at CCIR, and it's our pleasure today to have Phineas here to talk about his experience with the one-on-one mentorship. So firstly, can you just introduce yourself? So tell us where you're from, what year you are in school, your age, and then kind of what your academic interests are.
Yeah. So, hello, my name is Phineas Bjorlin. I'm from the Bay Area, California. I just entered my senior year in high school, and I'm really interested in like economics, artificial intelligence, global disparity, income inequality, which is kind of what my paper focuses in on.
Nice. And then what made you seek out CCIR initially?
I think I was just looking for that. I was always interested in research, and I was really looking for that support, especially with publication, and to really hone in to make my research paper stand out, which I think the one-on-one mentorship does really, really well. I think the quality that my paper increased, where as in if I wrote it before without CCIR versus after, just because of the expertise and the way we were able to really hone in on a topic that my professor was able to give me was just incredible. So it just really increased the quality of my paper, which I hope will obviously increase the likelihood of it getting published in a respectable like journal or newsletter.
Nice. Yeah, for sure. And then what can you just give us a general overview of what your course was about? Do you remember who your mentor was? Give us a
Yeah.
little bit of background on that.
So my mentor was Dr. Keivan Agassi, who's a professor at the University of Sheffield, I believe, um, like working with economics and kind of the idea of startups and incubators, which I think is very interesting. And so my research paper was on how AI as a medical device can come in to kind of bridge income inequality. And can I talk about this for like a couple minutes? Is that
Yeah, of
fine?
course.
Yeah. Okay. Because it's kind of obviously it's a complex topic, but something I've always been very interested in was income inequality and this like global divide between the developed and the developing world. And one thing that like something that I constantly see around myself are newsletters or like interviews with some of the like world's largest tech giants like Jensen Huang, who say that artificial intelligence has all this great power, but it must be like harnessed in the right way, right? And so I was always interested in how artificial intelligence can kind of help bridge this divide or fill these gaps. And one thing that is present within these developing countries a lot of times is this like institutional void within the kind of medical region, because their education is worse and obviously the opportunity is so much less there because people must work and such that they cannot go to medical school and become certified physicians. And a lot of the things that medical experts do are CT scanning and just kind of understanding what a patient might have, what disease they might have, what problem they might have, how to cure it, what medicine to give them. And this is all things that AI has been doing within the United States. And so like it's like, oh, bingo, like we should bring that AI into the kind of like undersupplied developing world, right? But there's a problem here that artificial intelligence companies developing this technology can't really move into these countries because there are problems with their IP or like intellectual property laws, which make the data that these companies work with, which is basically their entire business model runs on data, very unsafe. And so it makes it really not like plausible for them to move into the developing world. And so then a lot of people say, well, what about, oh, harmonization, right? Which global harmonization is the idea of harmonizing the international like IP or intellectual property rules. Um, but at the same time, this issue has been debated on for like 25 years with like the greatest policymakers of the world, and it's been very kind of inefficient so far. Like we haven't really gotten anywhere, and that's because there are all these arguments on both sides, whether it'll like stifle innovation or whether it'll make these the data in these companies safer, right? But there. And this is where like kind of my idea comes in and my like nuance and like theoretical contribution comes in, which is that these companies developing AI can actually work directly with the developing countries' governments. And in that way, these technologies can be kind of implemented into these like centralized health systems in a way that obviously benefits the people living in those countries because of the AI usage in the medical sphere, which would greatly develop the medical sphere. And it also keeps the intellectual property of these companies safe while also allowing them to expand into new markets. So yeah, that's what I researched. There were only a couple case studies who have ever done this, but the main thing that I'm focusing on is this like healthcare region. But something I hope is that future research is able to kind of understand how this can be applied to many different topics of research, right? Whether you're talking about infrastructure or like technology development, right? Because AI, like, I mean, it can shape the world in so many ways, and I hope it can really bridge this like greater issue of income inequality. Um, but yeah, I was just honing in on that topic. But I hope that more people research how these other spheres can kind of be addressed. So yeah, sorry if that was a bit long.
No, that's great. And it's such an important topic. And I think even not even with AI, but in general, with just getting healthcare kind of up to speed in developing countries, there's so many countries where even in the major cities where the healthcare systems are still on paper instead of, having an electronic healthcare patient care system, which, people lose their folders and all of that and creates so
Absolutely.
many
Yeah.
issues. Yeah. So even at the most basic level, it's so important. What interested you in kind of income inequality or in this in specifying with healthcare in general? Did you have that interest before CCIR? Did this kind of develop within your course?
Yeah, so I've always been interested in income inequality just from like an economic standpoint. Like I do a lot of Model UN and I think policy, like public policy and international relations are really interested. And within that field, I've kind of like dwindled it my like specific interest down into like the economics sphere of that. And so I don't know, I think with all the travel that I've been fortunate enough to travel to a lot of places throughout my childhood. And I think at some point, like I've seen all this disparity like with my own eyes, right? And I mean, coming from someone who lives in like such a prosperous like place, it really just like kind of has stuck with me. Um, so as for income inequality, it's been there for a while. And I've always been interested in AI as well. My parents or my mom works with AI a lot. Like she works with at NVIDIA. So within that kind of sphere and just living in Silicon Valley, it's like kind of right now where it's all happening, right? But that's what I really like about CCIR is that through CCIR, I was able to hone it into this like medical sphere. I had no clue that I was going to be able to like hone it down into like which sphere or like even go into like, look in the medical field or whatever. But just through kind of the guidance of Dr. Agassi and CCIR, I was able to like take my huge idea, right? Which is like, oh, like, I mean, just broadly speaking, how can AI address income inequality, right? But for me, a high school student to like research that would be insane. Like, it's way too broad, obviously. So to be able to hone it down into something that like really interested me, like he was able to understand, like we went through a couple different like fields and we were like able to understand what I was interested about and like which one would actually be like applicable to my idea. So yeah, I mean, it was the guidance of Dr. Agassi that kind of brought that like medical aspect to it.
Nice. And then can you walk us through the details of your research a little bit more? So what type of research you conducted, what the process of finding data was like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I worked with case studies. Um, there were only like six in. So I looked at first. I looked at companies developing AI as a medical device who had kind of been expanding into the world, right? And I looked at measures of how they expanded, right? But in specifics, I was looking at companies who were expanding into the developing world, which there were very, very few. There's a lot of movement from companies from like the US to Europe or Japan or like developed to developed, right? Because that's a much easier kind of transaction, you could say. So I found these very specific like five case studies. And then I looked at well, first of all, I looked at like, oh, like how is this spread out? Like some because And I noticed for all five of these, or the five at least that I researched who moved into developing countries, all of them work directly with the government, right? Whether it be with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or some worked with ministries of health, that was the most common, and then was able to implement it into these systems. And then for some, once they were able to kind of be implemented into these centralized health systems, they could be moved a little bit into the private sector, with the still like being overseen by the government, um, just for protection purposes of their IP, right? But I looked at like, oh, how were they able to move and what kind of motivated them to move into the developing world? Because maybe the like business opportunities are poor there, are like lesser for these companies, right? But I think it was just the idea for most of just developing and expanding like globally, whether it be into the developing world or the developed world or both at the same time, right? And a lot of these, like for example, one of the companies I researched, Ubenwa, was actually it was like founded by a group of Nigerian, like scientists and engineers, but they lived in Canada. So then that kind of motivated them to move it back, and expand it in Nigeria through the government. But yeah, but I mean, I think a lot of these people actually, like within moving into the developing world, had this kind of idea that yeah, it would be more beneficial to the people and the citizens in the developing world. And then something I made sure to look into was obviously like how this kind of transaction was completed, like what kind of VC or like what entity was supporting this movement. And for some, for example, there was a company moving into Brazil, which was supported by Brazilian like venture capitalists. So these like Brazilian, like obviously venture capitalists wanted, or like these venture capitalist firms wanted, this like greater technology and this greater, like medical field within their own country. So they supported it, right? And then there's also some like international funds, based with like NATO and like, which I think is awesome that they were able to fund some of these companies like kind of expansions into the developing world. But yeah, I was mainly focusing on, like to summarize, I was mainly focusing on case studies.
Nice. And then from the case studies, were there any that were quite successful? Like what did it kind of look like in terms of the outcome?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so all of them right now have actually been kind of they're being implemented right now because this is a very like recent or like present kind of issue. But all of them are being implemented right now. But I know some of them, the same one I was talking about, or like three of them already have started like actually expanding and like their AI, their systems are now like flourishing within these countries. I know one of them, which moved into India, has actually been like applied into like over 50 hospitals. Their technology, their like CT scanning, their AI CT scanning has been like applied to over like 50 hospitals in India. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think what they're seeing right now is actually great success because they're working with the actual governments of these countries. But yeah, I mean, I think it's incredible the initiative that these companies take because it's a very unique kind of like business approach. And I think a lot of people would think like, oh, this is not possible for just these like kind of smaller companies to work directly with obviously government entities. But yeah, they've been very successful so far, which is why I'm so interested in how other kind of spheres can be addressed with this like same kind of model.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And seems quite promising, which is great. That sounds like really interesting research, and very niche and kind of new and groundbreaking, which is very cool.
Thank you.
Now we're going to shift to discussing just your general experience with CCIR. So firstly, can you tell us broadly what your experience was like in the program doing a high level research project like this as a high school?
Yeah. Well, it was definitely a lot of work, if that's like one of the major questions. But honestly, the experience was incredible because I went into this kind of knowing a bit what I wanted to research, being how AI can impact income inequality as like a broad subject, right? But we really, really went deep into like this for the first maybe like 7 weeks or something, which is a 14-week long kind of mentorship into like kind of like lectures of me like understanding to understand that I fully like understand what I'm talking about. Because obviously if I'm going to write a research paper on it, I want to be an expert on it. And then from there, And of course, in every week, I read like these academic papers that my professor sent me, and I maybe like answered some questions on them, or like wrote like a small like essay or something on it, like a little homework, whatever, to understand that I like fully understood what we had been talking about. And then from there on, it was kind of like diving into, but like not too far into like little like sub regions. So I could like kind of identify exactly where I wanted to like apply my research. Because obviously we wanted to go super like niche and get to a super like nuanced topic so I could actually make some sort of like theoretical contribution. Um, and then yeah, and then maybe once the 12th or 11th or 12th weeks like mark hit, I started writing like drafts of different like sections. One thing that I found super helpful from Dr. Agassi was kind of the formatting and like the splitting up of sections of research papers, which now I mean, and maybe for most, it's like kind of obvious how you would want to like section it off. But I think like with the whole literature review and everything and how you should like, oh, you shouldn't write the introduction first. Like you should write this last, right? And it's just like with that, that really helped me, I think, formulate like a good or high quality research paper. Um, but yeah, I thought the experience was awesome. It was a lot of work at times, but I think I knew that when I signed up for it. And I'm glad it was a lot of work because I mean, I think if you want to write like a lower quality research paper, it wouldn't be as much work, right? But yeah, I'm kind of happy with the timing that it worked out because it was kind of the beginning of the summer when I started writing. So I had, obviously, I didn't have the burden of school, and like schoolwork and such. But yeah, I mean, it was an incredible experience. I mean, just the amount of kind of guidance I could get from my professor being like just one-on-one was like unmatched. And we completely like it was completely tailored to exactly what I wanted to do, exactly what I wanted, what I was interested in, right? It was like I was the entire driving factor behind this. Um, but yeah, obviously, hats off to Dr. Agassi and CCIR. I mean, I couldn't have done it without obviously either of them. Yeah, I mean, it was an incredible experience for me.
That's great. Yeah, he is a great mentor. And I think it's great that you pointed out the one-on-one program, how student driven it is. We basically design the entire program and course and direction around what you want to do, which is so beneficial and very rare for especially a high school student to get access to something like that.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
had you had experience writing kind of research papers in this format or of this level before?
So not really. I had done kind of like smaller level like research, but like much shorter, for like maybe school projects or like stuff like that, or for actually for some Model UN debates for like prior to those conferences, maybe I'd written like short research papers, but nothing ever of this level or of this kind of like uniqueness, because I'm sure the things that I was writing about prior, like they had already been written about, right? And like I mean, a large amount of what I had written about was maybe like obviously just AI and like income inequality, but this like really dove into some place that was like kind of hadn't been written about, it hadn't been touched, and it was like completely nuanced, which I really like. So no, I didn't really have this experience writing, which I think if what you're trying to get to is like how CCIR can like enable anybody to become like a really good research writer. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of work, but I think just the ways I mean, it's like you're being mentored by like a professor, right? By an expert in the field, by someone who's like truly an incredible like writer, right? So I think that mentorship can just make me, who's like someone I would not consider myself a good writer. I mean, I'm doing like college essays and stuff, and like it's definitely like not my, utmost strength, right? But just the ways in which you can be like kind of, I mean, I don't know, like you talked about, just the one-on-one, it's like a different feel, right? And you get really like feedback that's specifically like right on top of like what you're working with. um and so yeah, I mean, I think I didn't have much research, or I didn't have much research experience, right? But I was able to kind of get into this world of research through this one-on-one mentorship.
Nice. And I think you also made a good point about it really is a lot of kind of what you put into it, you'll get out of it. If you
Yeah,
want a really excellent research paper, you will put in the work to do that and it will come out excellent and you'll get published and it will, you could even present at conferences. But it
yeah.
really is kind of how much you want to put into it. And then we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but just given that this is such kind of a niche course and a niche topic, what was it like getting access to an expert in the field of such a niche developing, topic and being able to research something like that?
Yeah, so this is the part where I'm like, oh, I couldn't do it without, Dr. Agassi. This is where it really shines, right? Because like having this like greater idea, there's just no way I could have pushed it into this niche realm of like kind of IP and AI as a medical device, right? Because he just has like, I feel like the one-on-one mentor really gets to know you, gets to know your interests, gets to know what you're good at, gets to know what you want to write this research on. And they're able to kind of shift away because they understand like, oh, we can't write something that's so broad, right? But they're able to kind of really like poke into these super interesting and like super like I don't know, like highly advanced like kind of fields, like these small nuanced niche fields, right? And they're kind of able to uncover them for you, you know? Like I don't know, I was able to kind of just speak with him about what I wanted to research, and he was able to give me like incredible feedback and like, oh, what if we do this? What if we move in here? Like I could, and then we like talked about them and he discussed them, and I mean he's truly an expert on like everything in this field, right? But he's like it was really able to kind of ping my interest on, whereas like if I was alone on this process, or even if I was in something where we had like a shared mentor, but I didn't have this one-on-one kind of like relationship, I wouldn't be able to kind of understand like all these kind of little small plays, all the directions that I could go. Because he was able to kind of explain each direction really well and give me a background in it and understand if I would appreciate it or if it kind of supports the idea that I'm trying to research. So I guess he was just able to, I mean, I guess just the one-on-one like mentorship, just being able to like really speak with this like expert in a field kind of allows you to make to like go from a broad idea to like an actual like feasible research topic. Just in I don't know, through like conversation, through lecture, through like questioning, through like, oh, you should read this, you should read that. Like, here are some papers, I'll send them to you. Like, let me know if you're interested. Let me know if this is something you would want to write about. And it's just that he is like he understands kind of for me, and I think like I when I say he, obviously I'm referring to Dr. Agassi, but I mean, the one-on-one professor would understand kind of everything that you're interested in and all the different directions that you could go with your research, which I just think is incredible because it gives you so many options and it gives you so much kind of opportunity to really write about anything, even if you're not an expert in it already, because you have this like expert who's like mentoring you.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people don't realize how specific your research question needs to be in
Oh
order
yeah.
to
Yeah,
create a research paper compared to a lot of high school papers that are quite broad and you can write, 5 pages on this very broad subject, but a kind of traditional research paper really needs to hone in on a very specific, detailed question.
absolutely.
Okay, just a few more questions for you. Do you think that this course has given you any insights into your future? Has it maybe informed or shaped how you think of your path moving forward at all?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, 100%. Yeah, I think this is just kind of like becoming, or not like an expert in the field, but I mean, I've read so much, I've written so much, right? And like not to be like, I don't know, I do understand now so much about this kind of field, this realm of like income inequality and how AI can kind of bridge it. And I think, yeah, I think it's kind of, this is definitely something that I'm going to be looking into in the future. I think I have a bit more of like maybe a niche approach onto it. Like if I'm talking about what I want to do personally, well, right now it's kind of like up. I don't know. This is so susceptible to change, right? Of course, but um, I think I really am passionate about how, AI will develop and how it can shape this kind of international income inequality we see. But I think I'm taking it like my contribution to it in a different way. I don't think I would like to become like like a researcher or would like to like develop this AI or anything because I'm not really like interested in developing STEM. But I think maybe going into some region like private equity or something, like I'm very interested in economics, so that kind of falls along with it. And being able to kind of scout out these artificial intelligence companies that are working with kind of a nuanced like topic, for like infrastructure, for like med, for whatever, and being able to scale them and kind of like expand them into the developing world, I think would kind of be like maybe my way to contribute to this issue that I find a lot of passion in. And I think now just having this research kind of maybe gives me a greater understanding of these like companies. Like obviously if I were to go into private equity, I have to be able to scout out, oh, like which companies are going to succeed like within this realm. And I think just looking into this, like having this like extra knowledge on like AI in like healthcare from this research paper is going to allow me to do that. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's shaping kind of like the impact that I wish to have, regardless of what field I go into. It's kind of shaping and it's like the driving factor behind like what impact I want to have, which is kind of like to help. I mean, we have this incredible technology that's like being developed, right? My mom talks about it every day at dinner, right? I can't get enough of it, right? But it's like just like understanding like the ways in which this can kind of help every little like kind of aspect of human society, right? It's incredible. And I think a lot of people don't understand how it's not just something, you ask for help with your homework or something that can be like with computers, right? Or in technology, but it can just scale every single aspect of like human society and human infrastructure, which I think is incredible. And I think this could be the step forward to kind of bridge this issue that we've had for centuries.
Yeah, I think it's great. And it seems like, given that this is kind of your driving factor, no matter what industry you go into, AI will, develop into all industries and you'll be in whatever industry you're in to try and kind of push it the right direction, which is great. And then my last question for you, what would you say to someone who asked you what the value of doing a project or a program like this is, especially for a high school student?
Well, I think it's kind of right what I just said. I think becoming an expert in something you're truly interested in and something that like if I had to like phrase it in one like sentence, I'd say becoming an expert in something you're truly interested in and something that's truly impactful. There's nothing like being able to talk about something that you're super passionate about or write about something that you're super passionate about and like also have that expertise about it, you know? And I just think doing this research project, I think it's daunting for a lot of people doing a like a large scale research project, but it's truly shaped kind of the way I think and like really understand like something that I was already interested in, obviously, like AI, income inequality, whatever. But like kind of it's kind of like a solution, right? Like being like exposed and like actually just becoming an expert in kind of like this next step, right? This like solution to a problem you're interested in. I think there's no experience like it. Like just kind of the expertise I've been able to gain from it on this issue and the way that it's like impacted what I want to do in the future, or how I'm interested, or even how I see like AI, which is something so important to our future and to our like present even, is incredible. And I think like, yeah, it's a daunting project for sure, and it's a lot of work to take on. But if it's something you're truly passionate about, like the topic, I think it's a way to elevate your understanding to like incredible heights.
Yeah, I think that's really great. And clearly you're super passionate about it. So it's really wonderful that you were able to get that experience. So that brings us to the end of our interview. It's been such a pleasure chatting to you, and congratulations again on your nomination to our Spotlight series.
Thank you so much for having me.